This is the spec book that was produced for the plumbing. This binder is the spec book for the original house to submit for bids. The winning bidding party was Trumbull Nelson. But they produced these wonderful old blueprints. It's hard to see, it's hard to read, but they blueprinted out everything. The stairs, which were to be a terrazzo. The frame of the building was to be ironwork. It was all I-beam construction, which if you've lived in the house you know about. The floors would be 4.5 inches of poured concrete surmounted by terrazzo. And this would produce a reasonably strong structure, a fireproof structure, a building that would last several hundred years. The details on the exterior, the trim might get old, it might need to be refurbished. But the bones of the house, like the brotherhood that built it, were strong and of iron. And they weren't going to skimp on anything like that. So they over-engineered it. The house was designed in a neo-Georgian style, which was popular in the 30s. It had been popularized going back to Stanford White's company of White and McKim, which had done a lot of houses in the 30s. So it was a very popular design in America. It was a good design. It was streamlined. It was to be brick with white paint on the outside. It was to have a squash court in the basement. It was to have a ski room in the basement because the brothers were doing a lot of skiing at this point. A roughing room. And then there were to be social rooms on the first floor. There was an apartment for a caretaker with its own private bathroom. The second floor was to have study rooms for all the brothers. And they would have all of their clothing and a closet space, and each of the brothers would be allocated that. The third floor was to have dormitory rooms. At this point, there are no fire doors. So the heat in the house rises naturally up the stairwell, the central stairwell, and then goes out along the floors, which is why you have very little heating on the third floor. It wasn't needed because they were just bunk rooms. And everybody lived their life on the second floor, or the first floor. And the idea was that you'd have a caretaker. Before Social Security, there were a lot of older guys around who needed a second income, place to live. So you'd have a living caretaker on the first floor, and you'd have this house with its own telephone room, ski room, and all of this stuff, and everybody'd sleep in bunk rooms on the third floor. The bridge was the alumni dormitory room. It was to have bunk beds and be set aside for alums returning, which is why it's the only room on the third floor that had its own integral closet system. None of the other rooms really had closets because you didn't need them. You're sleeping under the gables and stuff, just bunk space. So it was a very different place. But the house was completed in 1937, the brothers moved in.